The industrial road was lit by fire and sirens, burning metal flashing red-blue, headlights slicing the dark. The Vale Syndicate's ambush had collapsed into chaos. Masked men scattering into alleyways, federal agents forming lines, Amara's security holding disciplined positions like a wall that refused to shake. Adrian Cross stood in the centre of it all in prison chains, wrists cuffed, ankles shackled, blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked less like a king now and more like a storm trapped in a bottle. Agents yanked him upright and barked commands, but Adrian's gaze stayed fixed on one thing. The convoy where Amara had arrived, the professional calm of her men, the invisible shield around Ethan and Lily. Amara didn't move toward him. She didn't give him relief or anger. She only watched him with a face that refused to offer him anything. No forgiveness, no softness, not even hatred. That was the cruelest punishment, being seen clearly, with nothing to hide behind. Across the road, Zuri Okafor appeared behind a federal line, her white coat bright against the night like a challenge. Her hair was perfect, her jaw was tight, her eyes were filled with a kind of rage that didn't burn out. It sharpened. She looked at Adrian like she could still taste the humiliation of the wedding. "You did this," Adrian said, voice calm despite the chains. He wasn't asking. He was naming. Zuri's expression didn't deny it. "You ruined my life," she replied, and the words were too neat to be spontaneous. She had rehearsed them. "You lied. You turned me into a joke." Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile, almost a wound. "You were never a joke," he said. "Just never the truth." That sentence snapped something inside her. It wasn't loud, Zuri didn't need loud. It was a crack in her control. Amara's recording still echoed in the air, Zuri's voice planning the hit, promising to finish Amara after. The truth had been exposed. Zuri had been caught. But Zuri wasn't finished. People like her didn't end gracefully. They ended theatrically. She stepped backward, out of the strongest light, toward the confusion where agents were shouting and masked men were running. For a moment, nobody watched her closely. Everyone was looking at the ambush, the sirens, the fleeing syndicate men. Zuri's eyes flicked to the side. A dropped weapon lay near a fallen masked gunman, his hand slack, his glove torn. The pistol glinted faintly in the streetlight. Zuri moved like a decision. She bent, picked up the gun, and hid it against her body, with the practiced grace of someone who had learned quickly tonight that power wasn't a boardroom word. It was a life and death thing you held in your palm. An agent turned. "Ma'am, step back." Zuri's smile was thin. "Of course," she said sweetly and stepped, sideways, not back, into a lane of shadow. Her gaze locked onto Amara. Amara stood calm still, protected by men who scanned threats outward. But nobody had scanned Zuri inward, into that private storm. Zuri raised the gun. For half a second, everything froze, not because the world agreed to stop, but because every soul on that road felt the temperature drop. Diallo shouted, "Gun!" Amara's eyes widened slightly, not fear for herself, but instant fear for what the bullet could take from her children's future. Zuri aimed directly at Amara's chest. Her voice came out like a whisper sharpened into a blade. "You took everything from me." Her finger tightened. The gunshot should have been the loudest sound of the night. But the loudest sound was the inhale Amara couldn't stop. Sharp, instinctive, the breath of a mother watching the future tilt. Zuri's finger tightened. Time didn't slow. People simply failed to move fast enough. Diallo lunged, but he was a step too far. An agent shouted, but the warning arrived after the action. Amara's guards raised weapons, but their training couldn't erase physics. And Adrian Cross, still chained, still surrounded, moved anyway. It was not graceful. Shackles don't allow heroics. His ankle chain snapped tight as he threw himself forward, momentum dragging metal across asphalt. A federal agent grabbed his sleeve, but Adrian ripped free with brute force and pure decision. His cuffed hands slammed into the air as he stepped into the line between Zuri's gun and Amara's body. The shot fired. A sharp crack, then a thud of impact that sounded wrong. Too close, too heavy. Adrian jerked. His face tightened, not in surprise, but in recognition, like he'd known this was the bill he would pay eventually. The bullet hit him high in the torso, just below the collarbone. For a moment he stayed upright, eyes wide and furious, as if he could refuse pain by commanding it. Then he fell. Chains clattered, his shoulder hit the ground. Blood spread into the fabric of prison grey, like ink poured onto paper. The road erupted. "Down!" an agent shouted. Weapons rose. Zuri staggered backward, her face whitening as the reality of what she'd done finally landed. She hadn't shot a rival in a boardroom. She'd shot a man in front of federal agents, in front of cameras, in front of the woman she hated. Diallo moved first, fast, controlled. He knocked the gun out of Zuri's hand with a sharp strike. It skidded across the road and stopped near a tire, harmless now. Agents swarmed Zuri, forcing her hands behind her back. She didn't scream yet. She just stared at Adrian on the ground as if she couldn't understand why the world wouldn't rewind. Amara didn't run to Zuri, she ran to Adrian. Her heels slipped slightly on gravel as she dropped to her knees beside him. She wasn't gentle, she was urgent. Her eyes scanned the wound like a professional because she had learned to be professional about survival. Adrian's breathing came in sharp pulls, each one smaller than the last. His eyes lifted to her, and in them was something Amara hadn't seen in years. Not arrogance, not control, only a tired, broken honesty. "Why?" Amara demanded, voice low and shaking with rage she refused to show anyone else. "Why would you do that?" Adrian tried to speak, coughing instead. Blood stained his lip. He swallowed hard and forced the words out like they were heavier than the chains. "Because I owed you," he rasped. "One good thing." Amara's eyes burned. "You can't erase years with one bullet." Adrian's mouth trembled. "I know," he whispered. "I'm not asking." For the first time, Amara understood the strange cruelty of the moment. Adrian had chosen to do the one thing that could look like love, and he had chosen it too late for it to heal anything. Sirens screamed closer, though the road was already full of them. More units arrived. Medics rushed with bags and gloves, radios crackled. The night was suddenly crowded with authority, and still, the most powerful man Blackstone City had ever feared lay bleeding in the dirt, unable to command his own heartbeat. Amara held her position beside him, not holding his hand, not comforting him, just there like a witness. Adrian's eyes drifted past her shoulder, toward the SUV, toward the twins. He swallowed again, struggling. "Where are they?" Amara's voice was flat. "Safe," Adrian exhaled, a sound that was almost relief and almost regretted. He tried to lift his cuffed hands, failed, and let them fall back to the ground with a faint metallic clink. "I didn't know them," he said, "but I—" His words broke as his body fought to keep up. A medic pushed in. "Ma'am, we need space." Amara didn't move until she saw Ethan and Lily stepping out from behind Diallo's legs, drawn by the commotion like gravity. Her heart slammed. "No," she whispered, standing fast. "Ethan, Lily, stay back." But the twins were already moving. Ethan and Lily walked forward slowly, not running, not crying, just moving with the same strange calm they'd carried into the wedding hall. The sirens, the shouting agents, the flashing lights, the smell of smoke and blood. None of it made them panic. They had grown up around tension without being told its name. Amara stepped toward them, palms out. "Stop!" she ordered, her voice breaking despite her control. "Stay behind Diallo." Ethan didn't stop. He held Lily's hand tighter, as if he were the older one by years instead of minutes. He looked up at his mother first, steady, serious. "We want to see," Ethan said. Amara's chest tightened. "You don't need to see this." Lily's eyes flicked to the ground where Adrian lay. "We already saw him," she whispered. "At the wedding." Amara swallowed hard. Behind her, medics worked quickly, cutting fabric, applying pressure, speaking in sharp, professional language. Adrian's face had gone pale, but his eyes remained awake, locked on the twins like they were the last thing holding him to the world. Ethan stepped closer, stopping just outside the medic's reach. His small shoulders were stiff, his mouth set in a line too adult for his age. He looked at Adrian, then said the words he had carried for days, like a stone in his pocket. "You don't get to be our father now." The sentence landed harder than any gunshot. It didn't scream, it wasn't dramatic. It was a simple truth, spoken by a child who had already decided where love was allowed to live. Adrian's eyelids fluttered. A weak breath pulled through him. He stared at Ethan as if he wanted to argue, but no argument existed. Lily stepped forward at half a pace, still holding Ethan's hand. Her voice was softer, almost confused. "But you saved our mum." Amara's eyes widened, and for a moment she hated the tenderness in Lily's sentence, not because Lily was wrong, but because Lily was kind in a world that would punish kindness. Adrian's lips trembled. He turned his head slightly, trying to focus on Lily's face. "I can't," he tried. Then he coughed and swallowed blood. "That's all I wanted to do, once," he whispered finally, the words thin as breath. Amara's jaw tightened. "Don't," she warned him, not loud, just sharp. "Don't try to make this a story." Adrian's eyes moved to her. There was an apology in them, and something else too. Acceptance, as if he finally understood that the heroic gesture didn't erase the years of absence, and that Amara would never let it. Ethan looked at Amara then, as if asking permission with his eyes. Amara's throat closed. She nodded once, barely, because she could not protect them from reality forever. Ethan faced Adrian again. "Why did you leave?" he asked, not angrily, curiously, like a child asking why the sky is blue. Adrian's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, they were wet, though no tears fell. "Because I was stupid," he breathed. "Because I thought power mattered." Lily's voice was small. "Mum cried," she said. "A lot." Adrian flinched as if those two words were a knife. He tried to lift his cuffed hand again, failing. The chain clinked. A medic pressed his shoulder down gently. "Don't move." Ethan's face didn't soften. It didn't harden further. It stayed steady. "Don't hurt her again," he said like a rule. Adrian's lips pulled into the faintest broken curve. "I won't," he whispered. Amara stepped forward and pulled the twins back, firm, protective. She wrapped an arm around each of them, holding them close enough to shield their faces from the blood. She looked down at Adrian. Her voice was calm, but each word was edged. "The end doesn't erase the beginning." Adrian swallowed, eyes fixed on her as if he wanted to argue with fate itself. But he didn't. He only breathed. Smaller, weaker. Behind them, agents had Zuri in handcuffs. Zuri had finally begun to scream, her voice hysterical and furious. "She took everything from me," Zuri shouted, struggling. "I'm the victim. I'm the one who lost." Amara didn't look at her. The only thing Amara could see was the fragile space between her children and the man who had given them a face they shared but a life he never offered. A medic leaned in. "We're losing him," he murmured. Amara's grip tightened around Ethan and Lily. Adrian's gaze drifted one last time toward the twins, and then toward the night sky above the sirens. His mouth moved again, barely forming sound. "Amara." His voice was barely there, more breath than sound. The sirens, the radios, the shouted commands all faded behind that one fragile syllable. Amara stared down at him, her face unreadable, arms still wrapped around Ethan and Lily. She did not kneel again. She would not give him the comfort of closeness. Not now. Not after everything. Adrian's eyes searched her face as if he might find forgiveness hidden somewhere in her silence. Blood soaked the front of his prison shirt. The medics pressed harder, hands moving faster, but the rhythm of his breathing was slipping away like water through fingers. Amara leaned slightly forward, not out of love, but out of finality. "Speak," she said. "If you have something to say it." Adrian swallowed, and the motion looked painful. "Tell them," he whispered, eyes flicking toward the twins. "Tell them I tried." Amara's jaw tightened. The word "tried" sounded too small for the damage he had done. She didn't soften, but she didn't strike him either. She answered with a truth that was colder than cruelty, because it was fair. "They'll remember what they choose to remember," she said quietly. Adrian exhaled. His gaze drifted to Ethan and Lily. Ethan stood still, holding his mother's coat. Lily's eyes were wet, though she didn't cry loudly. She simply stared as if she were memorizing the moment without understanding why. Adrian's lips moved again. "Ethan," he breathed, then struggled. "Lily," the medics tried to stabilize him. One spoke into a radio, urgent. Another shook his head slightly. The world around them continued its noise. But the life inside Adrian Cross was fading with terrifying simplicity. For years, Adrian had controlled outcomes with threats and money. He had negotiated with death as if death worked for him. Tonight, death didn't recognize his name. Adrian's eyes finally closed halfway. He took one more breath, thin, rattling, then another that didn't fully arrive. His shoulders sank. The tension left his face like a mask being lifted. A medic checked him, then looked up with a grim stillness that said everything. Amara didn't react the way the world expected a woman to react at a man's death. She didn't scream, she didn't collapse, she simply held her children tighter, as if grief was something she would process later, privately, safely, far away from the chaos that had followed Adrian into every room. Across the road, Zuri was still struggling in cuffs, hair undone now, control shattered. "She stole my life!" she shrieked. "She stole my company, my name, everything!" An agent tightened his grip. "You're under arrest for attempted murder," he said sharply. "And conspiracy." Zuri's screams turned to sobs, then back to rage. "He deserved it. She deserved it." Amara finally looked at Zuri, one slow glance, nothing emotional, nothing dramatic. "No," Amara said, calm and final. "Your greed did this. Your pride did this." Then she turned away, ending Zuri's existence in her life with the simple act of refusal. Diallo opened the SUV door. "We should go," he said quietly. Amara nodded. She guided Ethan and Lily inside, checking their seatbelts herself as if the smallest routine could keep the world stable. Ethan watched her with solemn loyalty. Lily leaned into her mother's side, eyes still on the road where Adrian had fallen. As the convoy pulled away, the sirens receded behind them, like a storm moving to another neighborhood. Epilogue. Weeks later, the city changed. Without Adrian Cross, crews fractured, money trails dried up, and federal raids hit like dominoes falling. The empire that had looked untouchable collapsed under the weight of its own secrets. Men who once called Adrian boss scrambled for safety or revenge, and many disappeared the way Adrian's enemies used to. Zuri Okafor faced trial with cameras watching, her name reduced from billionaire legend to criminal headline. The recording played in court. The evidence stacked high. The world that once protected her no longer recognized her power. And Amara Okoye? Amara left Blackstone City for good, taking Ethan and Lily somewhere quiet, somewhere far from dockyards and sirens. She chose peace over revenge, distance over drama, a future over a war. Ethan and Lily grew up knowing one truth their mother never needed to say aloud. A man can rule the world and still lose the only family that mattered. The end.